Okay, so our introduction here, we're going to explore ADHD and functional medicine approaches specifically for ADHD. So we're going to cover nutrition, supplements, and lifestyle changes. Understanding brain function and neurotransmitters is absolutely key in understanding how ADHD works. And then we're going to look at some practical dietary strategies for managing ADHD symptoms as well. Okay. Sorry, I'm just in a sec. Where am I? Sorry, hold on. All right, there we go. Okay. So ADHD, a focus on functional medicine. Did you know that between 5 and 11% of children today and 2.5 and 6% of adults are living with ADHD? So to explore nutrition and lifestyle to manage ADHD functioning is just really important. Okay? It's impacting a significant amount of our population. And nutrition, supplements, and lifestyle can really improve ADHD symptoms. There's a journal, a medical journal called Nature Metabolism, which published an article linking maternal Western diet patterns during pregnancy with an increased risk of 66% for ADHD, and for autism was an increased risk of 122% in children at 10 years old. So maternal diet during pregnancy plays a massive, big role in ADHD and autism, okay? And the other thing is that it is a very comorbid condition, psychological condition. And that means that there are a number of other conditions that can be linked with ADHD. Sorry, I don't know why. Okay. And those can be things like depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, and so on. So anything between 40 and 90% of ADHD individuals can have those other conditions linked. So it's a very significant psychiatric and psychological condition. Okay, so let's go on. The holistic approach that we use addresses the imbalances. Okay, so there's a lot of imbalances that are part of ADHD. We focus on personalized strategies for each individual. That's very much how we work in functional medicine. We personalize each person's plan. Understanding the brain behavior connection with ADHD and exploring nutrition as a foundational strategy for ADHD. So the brain's functional view. ADHD affects brain structure and function. The prefrontal cortex is key for focus. And your prefrontal cortex is the last part of your brain to develop. It only develops at the end of adolescence and even into early adulthood. So it's a very important, it's your emotional regulation, a lot of that kind of stuff. Functional medicine looks at improving focus and control in ADHD. And holistic strategies improve ADHD symptoms effectively. So what are some of the symptoms of ADHD? Okay, obviously the attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, that's what it stands for. So inattention is one of those. And how does that manifest? And that can be difficulty sustaining attention in tasks or play. not seeming to listen to when spoken to directly. So that can be a big issue with children at school and with teachers. Struggling to follow through on instructions, failing to finish schoolwork or chores, difficulty organizing tasks and activities, avoiding tasks requiring sustained mental effort, losing necessary items, easily distracted and forgetful. Hyperactivity is another symptom. So that manifests as fidgeting, squirming, leaving your seat when expected to remain seated, excessive running or climbing in children, obviously, or restlessness in adults, difficulty playing or engaging in leisure activities quietly, often on the go, all the time busy, or driven by a motor, talking excessively. And then the other symptom that is associated with this is impulsivity. And that manifests as blurting out answers, difficulty waiting in turn, interrupting or intruding on others. Okay, so we look at ADHD root causes, a functional view. So omega-3 fatty acids are absolutely crucial for brain health. They're really important from pregnancy onwards, and they're very important in the whole neural development of the baby and the child. Okay. The gut microbiome impacts brain function really strongly. There's a very big link between the gut and the brain. So managing our microbiome is very important. Food sensitivities can affect mental clarity, and we deal with that particularly through elimination diets, trying to find out exactly what food sensitivities the person is or a person has. And then toxin exposure can disrupt brain chemistry. Often there can be exposure to heavy metals, different toxins, and they can impact the brain. They can sit in the brain and cause issues. So sometimes it's necessary to look at that, and certainly looking at detoxing protocols can sometimes be a useful thing to do as well. Okay. ADHD's neurotransmitter pathways. Dopamine, obviously, is one of our neurotransmitters and is key for focus, motivation, and reward. Low dopamine hypothesis relates directly to ADHD. Okay, and that is looking at, often there's, there've been studies showing that people with ADHD have low dopamine. Norepinephrine affects attention and impulse control directly as well. And imbalances between all of these impact your brain circuits and ADHD symptoms. So very important that we look at our neurotransmitters and how to take care of those. Okay. GABA and glutamate, those are two absolutely crucial neurotransmitters, okay? And they are the brain's balancing act. So if you think about it, basically, GABA is your brake and glutamate is your accelerator. You had to look at it as a car. So GABA acts as the brain's primary inhibitory neurotransmitter, a brake. Okay, so it calms you down. Glutamate is the main excitatory neurotransmitter, the brain's accelerator. So evidence suggests that GABAergic dysfunction in some individuals with ADHD, okay? So that means that you don't, there's a dysfunction in how the GABA and the glutamate are balanced. So therefore you have too much glutamate and not enough GABA. And therefore you've got all of those excitatory neurotransmitters going all the time. And the child or the adult can't calm down, struggles to settle. There's always background noise. So very important that we look at these, okay? And there it says at the bottom, glutamate levels may be linked to hyperactivity and impulsivity. So EI, that stands for excitatory inhibitory, that excitatory inhibitory imbalance impacts executive function and reward systems, okay, so how we execute tasks. Too much excitation and not enough inhibition leads to those ADHD symptoms. Individuals with ADHD have difficulty filtering stimuli and can be restless. So all the different environmental stimulus, noise and movement and whatever's happening around them, they can't filter those out. So they battle with those kind of stimuli. Okay. So this imbalance contributes to impulsivity. ADHD's everyday realities. Okay, you can see that picture looks a bit chaotic, and I think that's what it can often be like for those kind of people living with those kind of conditions. It obviously impacts academics and occupational functioning greatly. If you can't settle down and focus on a task, you know, it's going to have a significant impact on your work. Social and relational difficulties are very common with ADHD. You know, if people don't understand that, it creates a lot of issues in a relationship. Inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity are core ADHD symptoms. Emotional and psychological well-being suffers due to ADHD. Often those people battle with low self-esteem. They battle with guilt and blame. There's a lot of psychological issues that can go with this kind of condition. So comprehensive management strategies are needed for a better life. Okay, nutrient-rich brain alive. Diet quality is so important. It really has a significant impact on brain health and overall well-being. Okay, whole foods offer key nutrients for balanced brain function. So very important that we're looking at whole foods and avoiding processed foods. Okay, processed foods lack nutrients and they can harm the brain. They can cause brain damage, as well as obviously the rest of the body. So we want as much whole foods as we can. Nutrient-rich foods include fruits, vegetables, and lean protein. Blood sugar control is very important as well with ADHD. There's a very big link. So blood sugar swings impact mood and focus. High glycemic foods cause insulin spikes. So we want to keep that blood sugar level balanced and stable and steady. Okay? Very important to prioritize fiber-rich carbohydrates because those have a much, you know, they release the blood or the sugar much slower, so it keeps your blood sugar steady. And protein, ensuring that you've got protein with every meal is very important because it stabilizes your blood sugar as well. Okay? Obviously, limit sugary drinks and processed snacks. Diet and sensitivity connection. Okay, again, as we mentioned earlier, food sensitivities can definitely have an impact. They tend to have delayed reactions. Okay, so food sensitivities are not food allergies. Food allergies you will know immediately. Those are mediated by an immunoglobulin that we call IgE, your immunoglobulin E, and that will trigger an allergy, which is an immediate reaction, and people have difficulty breathing and all that kind of stuff. With a food sensitivity, that gets modulated by your immunoglobulin G. So that's your IgG reaction. And those can have delayed reactions. Those can have reactions for up to 72 hours. So that's why often people struggle to know what foods they're sensitive to unless they do a very specific elimination diet. Okay, so there are various elimination diets that can help you to identify those food triggers. And elimination diets really are the gold standard in identifying food triggers. And that would definitely be something to look at as well in terms of managing diet. Artificial additives, I think most people know, are very much a trigger for particularly people with ADHD and autism, those kind of conditions. And sometimes it's common foods that can be triggers as well. Very much gluten, soy, dairy, and corn. And particularly dairy is a big trigger with people with ADHD. So that's definitely something to look at cutting out. Okay, sugar and ADHD facts. So sugar intake impact on ADHD has mixed evidence. The direct impact is not conclusive. But there is evidence, obviously, I mean, if you're having a high sugar diet, it's a high processed food diet, and that has a negative impact on everything in your body, okay? Certainly on your gut and your microbiome in your gut, which impacts your brain. So keeping sugar low is very important anyway, okay? Learning to read food labels is super important, okay? Things like your high fructose corn syrup, dextrose, maltodextrin, sucrose, and various other names that sugar can go by. So learning to read food labels, very important. Also, if you are looking at cutting out things like dairy and gluten, also reading food labels, super important. Limiting refined sugars and sugary beverages on a daily basis, absolutely. And as we said before, whole foods, carbohydrates, and fruits in moderation. ADHD's gut-brain pathway. The gut-brain axis is vital for ADHD management, okay? So there's a very significant communication between your gut and your brain. So dysbiosis in the gut microbiota is definitely linked to ADHD symptoms. And that can be assessed in various different ways. Dietary changes impact gut health and brain function. So bringing in whole foods, lots of vegetables, your prebiotics, that all feeds your microbiome, so very important to look at that. Probiotics can support your gut health as well and influence your neurotransmitters. Again, just do take care. It's always good to know what your microbiome is like when you are supplementing with probiotics, because you want to be adding in the right probiotics and not stuff that you've already got lots of, okay? Gut-brain communication involves inflammation and nutrient absorption. So very important that we calm that inflammation down. And that's calming our guts down and any inflammation in your gut. And that will then link to calming the inflammation in your brain down, because inflammation in your brain is neuroinflammation, and that is linked to a lot of the neurodegenerative disorders that we are dealing with in people nowadays as people get older. So very important to keep inflammation down, and that starts in the gut. So foundational dietary strategy review. Focus on whole, unprocessed foods for brain health, okay? Prioritize blood sugar regulation to manage ADHD symptoms, okay? So blood sugar, remember protein, always add protein into a meal. It helps to stabilize blood sugar. Investigate food sensitivities using elimination diets. Be mindful of sugar consumption. Read food labels carefully, and support gut health with dietary changes and probiotics. Okay, a nutrient bridge to a better brain. Supplementation complements a healthy diet and supports brain health. Professional guidance from a professional is crucial before supplements. It's always good to speak to somebody about targeted supplementation and what is best. And supplements should not replace a healthy food foundation, okay? The diet is the foundation, and that needs to be healthy. You need a good foundation, and then on top of that, you can add on with supplements. And that's why they're called supplements, because they are supplemental to a healthy diet. Sorry, sometimes I can't seem to scroll forward. There we go. Okay, omega-3s, as we mentioned earlier, super important in managing inflammation in our whole body, and in focusing our brain, helping our brain to focus, and just looking after our brains. So very important for brain cell structure and function, very important as children are growing. So making sure they're getting omega-3s in. With babies, you can even like open the capsule of an omega-3 capsule and just pop it into their bottle of milk if you want. So there's various ways of getting it into children, but very important to make sure they are getting that. They help reduce inflammation and they support better neurotransmitter activity. Potential benefits include improvements in attention and reducing hyperactivity. Good sources are salmon, flaxseed, chia seeds, and walnuts. Dosage advice often, should be provided by a healthcare professional. Typically, I would say at least 1,000 milligrams a day. But it does depend if it's an adult or a child. Essential minerals and brain power. Okay, so there are a few minerals that are very important. And often in studies and MRI studies and different things that they've done with people with ADHD, they have found these to be low. So zinc is crucial for brain health and dopamine metabolism. Magnesium, very important in like over 300 different processes in our bodies. It aids in calming and neurotransmitter function. Iron supports dopamine synthesis and oxygen transport in the brain. Again, professional guidance is a good idea, okay? And most of these we can test with blood tests. So I always like to get a baseline level before I give people supplements. It just gives us a very good idea of where we're starting. And then in 3 or 6 months' time, we can retest again. And we know whether we're going up or down, or, if what we're doing is working or not. If we just, start without any testing, then we really don't have a baseline. So always good to do that. And again, when you are dealing with supplements, quality is super important. So please make sure that you are using good quality, clean supplements, ideally third-party tested for cleanness, for efficacy, and so on, that you actually know that you're getting what you're supposed to be getting and that it does what it says it does. Sorry, I'm getting stuck. Okay, fueling focus with vitamins. Vitamins, okay, so we've dealt with the minerals. These are the vitamins. B vitamins, super important again. They deal with energy. They are very often cofactors for your neurotransmitter synthesis and so on. So very important, particularly your B6, your B12, your B9, folate, all of those B vitamins. And they play a very big role in methylation as well. So methylation is quite a complicated process. I'm not going to go into it now, but a lot of people, there's probably 25% of people who do battle with methylation genetically, just because they've got genetic specific genes that don't allow them to methylate optimally. And that just means that you need to be adding in a methylated B vitamin, because it means that your body cannot methylate the B vitamins on its own. So taking a methylated B6 and a methylated B12 is important for those people. And we can test that genetically if it is necessary. Vitamin D, again, we do that in a blood test, and it is such a vital vitamin, okay, for brain development, for immune function, for your bone development, for many, many different things. It's very, very important that we have optimal levels of vitamin D. Okay. Fueling focus with vitamins, again, L-theanine. All right, now that is an amino acid, and that increases your alpha brain waves for calm and alertness. So very, it's a very good supplement that you can add in as well. And often the L-theanine with the magnesium and the vitamin D makes a very good combination just to calm the brain down, to calm the person down, but to still maintain alertness, okay? So L-theanine also influences GABA, dopamine, and serotonin. It benefits sleep, attention, and cognition in ADHD support. Okay. Gut health, brain power. Probiotics, okay? They modulate the gut microbiota and reduce inflammation. So probiotics can be very good. Again, it's probably good to do different ones. And again, naturally you can bring in things like your fermented foods. They also contain lots of probiotics, your sauerkraut, your yogurt, your kefir. Those are great examples. But if you do that, bring it in slowly. Start with maybe a teaspoon, because some people can react. If your gut microbiome is not in a good, healthy situation, or if you're dealing with something like SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, then bringing in those fermented foods can trigger a reaction. So deal with that slowly, and if you do have a reaction, then you may need to just consult somebody to work with to optimize your gut health. Okay, so probiotics influence your neurotransmitter production through GABA. There is evidence for direct ADHD symptom reduction using probiotics. And as we said, fermented foods can be quite useful. Okay, supplementing for ADHD. So we've discussed the omega-3s. And again, with the omega-3s, make sure that you are getting a clean product. Omega-3s are typically taken from fish oil. And depending on where that oil is sourced, it can be quite polluted. So when you see what is going into our seas and what they're dumping, those fish are absorbing all the rubbish that is being pumped into the sea. So if they are not sourcing the fish from a clean environment and not cleaning that omega-3 properly and testing it, so having that third-party testing to ensure that there's no mercury, that there's no lead, that there's no other rubbish coming in with that omega-3 is very important. Okay, so make sure you're getting a good quality omega-3. Zinc, magnesium, and iron. Again, iron, be careful. do get it tested, your iron levels, and only supplement if you are low. You don't want to overdose on iron. B vitamins, vitamin D, L-theanine, and probiotics. GABA and glutamate, we need those again in equilibrium in the brain, as we discussed. Yeah, so ADHD sees lower GABA, and if you remember, GABA is your calming neurotransmitter. So if you've got lower GABA, you've got less calm balance. And typically we have too much glutamate, which creates excess brain noise. So that excitatory inhibitory balance impacts the brain focus, or the brain's ability to focus. Okay, so important that we get that GABA and glutamate balance right. Gut-brain balanced diets. Okay, fermented foods may promote calm, influencing GABA levels. Okay, as we said, the probiotics. Then green tea contains L-theanine, which also helps to support GABA. Vitamin B6 is a cofactor for GABA synthesis, so important that you're getting all your B vitamins. And focus on whole foods that are low in free glutamates. So certain foods have a lot of glutamate. Make sure that you are reducing those as necessary. Magnesium modulates glutamate receptors for brain balance. Magnesium is super important in many, many things. So that's definitely something to add in. Okay, a few functional medicine key points. All right, ADHD is linked to the neurobiological imbalances in neurotransmitter pathways. Okay, so there are imbalances in the neurotransmitter pathways. And please understand, like your serotonin, which is one of our neurotransmitters, 90% of that is made in the gut. So it's made by our microbiome. And if we don't have a healthy microbiome, we are not going to have good neurotransmitter production. Okay. Nutrition and diet significantly impact brain health and ADHD symptoms. Supplements can bridge nutritional gaps. Okay, so we always have a good diet first, but there are often things that may be genetically or due to various things we may be lacking. So supplements can just fill those gaps. Functional medicine offers personalized holistic strategies for ADHD. So that is very much what we do in functional medicine. We personalize plans for each person because nobody is exactly the same. And we need to work with the individual every time. And then addressing the GABA glutamate balance is crucial for brain equilibrium. Okay, so consulting a functional medicine professional is always a good idea if you are wanting to make lifestyle changes, continuous learning and research, and so on. These are our foundational supplements. You can go through that slide if you want to look at it later. It just goes through what we've already discussed. Okay. Okay, so ADHD lifestyle beyond diet. What can we do aside from diet? So sleep is super important. I think we all know that. Like all of us, you know what? You have a bad night's sleep. You feel crappy in the morning. You're irritable. You can't focus well. Your concentration is down. Like everything just doesn't work as well as if you've had a really good night's sleep. When you wake up, and you've slept well, you wake up, you've got energy, you can function well. So consistent sleep-wake schedule is really important for everybody, children, adults, all of us need that, okay? So going to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time. Our body has a rhythm. It's called a circadian rhythm. And it's really important that we make sure that we keep that rhythm going, that we go to bed at the same time, wake up at the same time, so that our bodies know what to expect. Regular aerobic exercise improves physical health. Okay, we all know that. But getting into routines again, our bodies like routines, and making sure that we are doing regular exercise is very important, and getting our children into regular exercise. Mindfulness practices, okay, especially for people with ADHD, very important because they struggle with that. And you can start with just a minute or 2 or 5 minutes a day. And just really what mindfulness is just being conscious of everything that's going on around you, being aware, because we're so busy in our heads. We're always thinking ahead. We're thinking about what we need to do today. We're thinking about, you know, we're just busy. We eat our food while we're busy on our phone, or, you know, so stop. When you eat, focus on your food, focus on what you're doing, on the different foods, the textures, the flavors, feel it, experience it through your senses. When you're drinking a cup of coffee or tea, like, be present in the moment. Okay, it's good for our stress levels, and it's part of that mindfulness practice. So teaching our children to be mindful, okay, and be present in the moment and not always in our heads. And then reducing toxin exposure. Okay, so as much as possible, like reduce toxins. We are assaulted with toxins all the time, like what we're putting on our bodies, what we're putting into our bodies, the plastics that our foods are in, what we're breathing in, all of those things, you know, it brings toxins into our bodies, and that has a massive impact on our brain function, aside from the rest of our body. So making sure we're aware of toxin exposure. Okay, and then we've got a couple of case studies here. Okay, we've got a 9-year-old boy. He presented with hyperactivity, impulsivity, and sleep difficulties. So our functional findings were food sensitivities to gluten and dairy. He had low magnesium and zinc deficiency. So the interventions that we did was an elimination diet, targeted supplementation to make sure we filled those gaps that he was low in, and then a sleep hygiene protocol. Okay. And the outcomes were 60% reduction in hyperactivity within 8 weeks, improved sleep quality, and better academic performance. So that's quite significant improvement, I think, 60% reduction of hyperactivity within 8 weeks. Okay, case 2, a 35-year-old woman. She presented with inattention, brain fog, and anxiety. Functional findings there was gut dysbiosis, the HPA axis dysfunction, which is your hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal glands, and an omega-3 deficiency. The interventions there was a gut healing protocol, omega-3 supplementation, and stress management techniques. And the outcomes were significant improvement in focus and productivity, reduced anxiety, and able to reduce stimulant medication. And then case number 3 was a 14-year-old girl. She presented again with inattention, emotional dysregulation, and fatigue. So our functional findings there with her were iron deficiency, poor blood sugar control, and inadequate protein intake. So the interventions there were iron supplementation, a balanced meal planning with focus on protein, and regular meal timing. And the outcomes were an improved attention span, better emotional stability, and increased energy levels. Okay, so now I just want to go through some of the supplements that we recommend in our functional medicine practice. I use a lot of Zymogen products. They are absolutely world-class. They are third-party tested, and the research behind them is absolutely amazing. So they are very, very good quality products. So the Relax Max has GABA. Let me just get some info here. So the Relax Max is a very nice combination of magnesium, myo-inositol, taurine, GABA, and L-theanine. So that helps to support your glucose metabolism. So it keeps your glucose stable. And it's, you know, the GABA will help your inhibitory neurotransmitters. So you get more of a balance in your neurotransmitters. So a very, very nice product just for calming. The one thing with supplementing with GABA, you don't want to take GABA on an ongoing basis, because it can start to inhibit your body's own production of GABA. So GABA you want to cycle through. So if you are wanting to take something like that, I would suggest just catching up with me, you know, before you go onto it, so I can guide you in terms of how to use that optimally. The OptiMag 125 is an absolutely awesome magnesium supplement. It's got 3 different types of magnesium in it, and they are all highly absorbable, and all the different forms of magnesium work slightly differently in your body. So it is good to have different ones, okay? And again, that's a very, very good product. It helps with sleep and calming and all that kind of stuff. L-theanine, we discussed that as well. It also helps to calm. And then your B Active has all your methylated B vitamins, your B6, your B12 methylated, and then all your other B vitamins. So a very good B complex supplement. Then you've also got these 2 products, your S-acetyl glutathione and your NAC, your N-acetyl system. So they are very good for general health and just managing that brain inflammation and oxidative stress in the brain. So if there are a lot of toxins, if there's exposure to heavy metals, any of that kind of stuff, it does cause oxidation in the brain, causes oxidative stress. And your glutathione and your NAC is a precursor for glutathione. They help to manage that oxidative stress in your body and your brain. So those are just good kind of supporting supplements. And then the other company that I use a lot of as well is Panacea. They have very, very nice kind of blend of botanicals as well as your vitamins and minerals. Okay, something like focal. I mean, it's actually called focal ADD clear. so that's quite a nice name. It actually, I mean, it's saying it clears ADD. So that has a variety of different things. It's got something called Panax. It's got zinc, iron, L-carnitine, L-tyrosine, and magnesium. So that's quite useful. It gives you a lot of different products in that one product. And that can be a very, very nice thing for, you know, just to help people calm and focus. And then the other one is Refocus. And they would probably work quite nicely together for people with ADHD. So Refocus has a whole list of different things that I can't even pronounce, but it's all the botanicals. So lots of different botanicals in that work for treating ADHD. So for the hyperactivity and for the attention deficit. So it's anti-inflammatory, it's antioxidative, it's anti-anxiety, and it's neuroprotective. So lots of different things in there as well. So So those two products are also absolutely awesome. Okay. Then there is another one. I don't think we've got it listed. Okay, it's called Zymo Bulks. Sorry, what did I do now? Anyway, Zymo Bulks has is an amino acid supplement. It's a powder. It's a fruit flavored powder, and it covers all your basic amino acids. It is absolutely awesome. They've got a very good patent pending on it, and yeah, the research that they've done into that is very good as well. And that gives you all your basic building blocks that you need for your amino acids to build those neurotransmitters, because those neurotransmitters need protein, and that is your amino acids to be able to build them. Sorry, I think I've lost the last slide. Anyway, so what I would like to just go through briefly, I think that was on the last slide. I don't know if you're able to pull it up at all, Steve, but anyway, I'm going to stop sharing then. Is just to go through some of the tests that we are able to do in terms of functional medicine, which would help us a whole lot if necessary, with people battling with different conditions like this. And the one would be like a stool analysis. That gives a lot of information in terms of gut microbiome, inflammatory markers, digestive, markers, and so on. So a lot of different information that we can get through that. We can do an organic acids test, and what's really useful with that is that it tells me exactly what, how you are using. Okay, there's the organic acids test, and it provides insights into neurotransmitter metabolism. So it tells me exactly how you're breaking down what you're taking into your body, okay, and what you're excreting at the end line. So it gives a lot of insight into what we need to help support your body to optimize things. Comprehensive stool analysis we discussed. We can also do essential fatty acid profiling, and that would tell me, it evaluates the balance between your omega-3 and your omega-6 fatty acids. So your omega-6 fatty acids are your pro-inflammatory fatty acids. Your omega-3s are your anti-inflammatory. So we need a good balance. We need an equal ratio of both of those. And the ratios that we're picking up in typical Western diets now is shocking. So people have got way more omega-6s, 20 to 50 times more omega-6 to omega-3. So that creates a lot of information and causes a lot of the issues that we're dealing with. So very useful to know what the fatty acid balance is. Food sensitivity testing is for the IgG food antibodies. We discussed that. We can do that, but we can also just do that through an elimination diet, which costs nothing and is probably the gold standard for testing for food sensitivities. Genetic testing, we absolutely can do DNA testing. It can be very useful. This MTHFR polymorphism that they're speaking about there, that is one of the genes that can impact your ability to methylate the B vitamins. So that is one of those that we do check when we do genetic testing, but there's a whole variety of different things that we can test with DNA. So those are some of the tests that we can do, which gives a lot more information. So I think that kind of summarizes it.